Syria's missing. I just know you just have disdain for the people of the Near East, but it's okay.
Listen, my opinion on Syria is whatever Vladimir Putin's opinion on Syria. I mean, Jimmy Dore's opinion on Syria is. So,
But Bashar's going to outlast you too.
No. If you want to talk about Syria, please do, because I admitted that from the rundown, my mistake completely. Not for not again. I will tell you, I've heard about some stuff popping off in Syria, but I have not dug into it because of, and I expressed this in the past on the show before. I was at TYT at a very weird time where a lot of the Syria stuff was popping off, and I had to be really invested into whatever Jimmy Dore was doing about it because my job was to produce for him. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to feed you the truth. You're doing this other weird thing, so whatever. And then, Jank and Anna were doing their own sort of perspective on it. And that was at a time where generally I trusted Jank and Anna's coverage more, but I was their producer and I would produce a lot of their coverage. And so, if I didn't feel like I understood it completely, I'm not sure if they understood it completely. And so Syria is honestly one of my blind spots in the sense that I don't have a good opinion on it because I don't really trust where I source my opinions on it. I honestly need a full reset, and I'm going to try to find an expert that I trust on it a lot. That definitely isn't BAM for reasons. But I want to bring someone on the show to kind of help me kind of bring me up to speed. That's definitely a lot of other parts of the world I can kind of bullshit on a little bit, know something Becky stand it a little bit. Shout out Herman Cain. But there have been so many different, mixed messages on the left about what's happened on Syria. That's not to say, oh, it's a complicated issue. That's just to say I've genuinely been confused by it and I don't feel comfortable standing on anything and expressing what's going on there. But that being said, if you want to talk about Syria and anything about what's going on there, feel free to take the floor. I just don't have a lot to contribute from it, and I'll honestly just be kind of learning from it.
Yeah, well, we recently have seen fighters from Hayat Tahrir Hashem, HTS for short. They did kind of a blitzkrieg on Aleppo. And as of right now, they have taken control of Aleppo and another city, Hama. And maybe they're trying to go some other places. The Syrian government forces did withdraw from Aleppo, and I'm guessing Hama too. They were probably sitting around smoking hookah and, telling people to hurry up, get to where they're going. No, that's how
No, folks. I'm the racist one on Power Report.
This is how the soldiers are. The soldiers are lazy until there's something to do. So they probably weren't really paying much attention to whatever's going on. And then these Turkish-backed rebels were getting their stuff together, getting their stuff together in Idlib. And yeah, they went for it. It is very interesting to see that there are a lot of Kurds. A lot of Kurdish people are fleeing from cities to different government-controlled areas. Back when I'm not going to spend too much time on this, obviously, hopefully, but back when the civil war was, at its peak in Syria, at that time I was deep in the Muslim community, and I generally had a very different opinion than everybody about this situation. And it really caused a divide in the community, at least here. It was a big deal. I'll say that. It was a big deal. And, for me, as soon as I saw John McCain supporting Syrian fighters, I was like, well, I know what side I'm on, or at least I know what side I don't want to win. But yeah, and I'm not going to get into relive that history, but yeah,
at least just say let's not go through the entire history of Syria really fast.
Well, in 1925. No, I'm joking.
No, but I
But
mean,
no,
like
there.
at least like the recent sort of like upset where like why is the late great Maverick John McCain must be this tall to ride the rides. John McCain is why did he have a take on Syria? What was he still alive for in his like last years having a take on Syria for? I think like starting in the 2010s here is you don't have to go super far into it, but like I think that's a good like touch point to see like why we're looking at this footage.
There were some protests that happened in Syria. Protesters, there were a fight started to happen. There were rebels, there were insurgents on one side and the government on the other side. Yes, some of these fighters did get open support from America. What the hell was her name? God, I can remember what their flag looked like, but they were like the rebel force that was like not Islamic, But yeah, there were a bunch of different rebel forces. They're fighting against the government. Russia comes to help. Free Syrian Army, of course. Bad Lefty got it. Yes, them. I knew people that were like, "Oh, I'm gonna go fight for the Free Syrian Army." I'm like, "Good luck, buddy." But yeah, they were openly getting backed by America. And the war rages on. There's a gazillion people leave the country. It's really bad. Kind of 2020. There's like basically a ceasefire. The rebels kind of take Idlib. It's like a city in the north west of Syria and that region close to Turkey. The Kurdish regions kind of have their own autonomous region. The Kurdish fighters were also getting helped by America. There were a lot of American former soldiers and soldiers that were fighting with the Kurds in Syria, mostly against ISIS. They didn't really fight against the government forces. The government forces and the Kurds kind of had like a little bit like, you do your thing, we'll do ours. But in 2020, it kind of the fighting kind of stopped. This is like the first major offensive really on either side since then. Now, I think it's really funny. I did see Benjamin Netanyahu talking about that Lebanese ceasefire. Did y'all see it?
Okay, yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Did anybody else see that? What Mr. Netan said? Because Netanyahu said that Netanyahu said, we're stopping, but I'm paraphrasing. We're stopping this fight with Hezbollah because we're getting prepared for the bigger enemy, which is Iran. I got it in my mind that Mr. Trump wants to declare war on Iran. I got it in my mind before that even. But when I saw Netan say that, I'm like, interesting. Then you see out of nowhere, who is Iran's ally right there close to Syria? Close to Israel? Syria. Now you got these rebel fighters who never once in a day had any smoke for Israel. What the former defense minister of Israel, Moshe Dayan or something like that, basically said, well, ISIS never did nothing to us. He said that on record.
ISIS never called me nigga.
Literally. They also, there was also a Nusra, was another rebel group, like an Islamic group. The IDF was like helping them at some point. I can't remember the details on that, but somebody could look that up. These Islamic rebel fighters who I've seen documentaries, I've seen such a good documentary on Canopy about one of these losers fighting for this quote unquote Islamic rebel force in Syria. This idiot blew his foot off with the mine. Dumbass. Anyway,
it's okay, Bam. Stop being so judgmental. That's just like what Americans do anytime like their home team wins like the World Series,
right?
Or the playoffs or whatever.
So they like these guys never had smoke for Israel ever. The only country surrounding Israel that is an enemy to Israel is Syria. That's the last one left. That's the last one. Hezbollah is not a country. Jordan is an ally of Israel. Egypt is an ally of Israel. Okay? Syria is the only one that's got smoke for Israel. They're trying to take this guy out. Real interesting.
What about Jordan?
Jordan is an ally of Israel. Jordan was shooting down Iranian drones and stuff when they were attacking recently.
What about I guess they don't border them, but there's the ones like nearby, like Turkey or Saudi Arabia.
Turkey is basically an ally of Israel.
Okay, so just so you know, I'm asking these questions very sarcastically.
I know, and I see you looking at a globe or something. Yeah. But so they were. He's like,
get my calipers for this globe.
Dan's like, what about Africa? But no, like, it's just really interesting that right now this rebel group wants to attack. Like, really? Are you setting something up for when Trump gets in office? Are you setting it up? I don't know. We will see. I'm usually wrong about these things, but I have no love for those rebels. Didn't have no love for the Free Syrian Army. Got no love for any of these quote unquote Islamic fighters in Syria. I will keep this brief. I will not go past 6:30. I promise. Like I said before, the war in Syria really divided a lot of people in the Muslim community, and it was sad. Like, because I saw people be like really like so hypocritical. Like, one day you didn't have no problems with Syria, you never talked about the government, and then the next day they're like the biggest dictators ever, and I'm like, what? Like, who sent you? I'm not saying that Bashar al-Assad and his government are perfect or good by any means. I have no idea. I ain't never lived there, but I knew people that was there every year, and they never said nothing. They never had an issue. I knew one guy who had to cut his beard off before he went there. He had a big ass beard, and they were like, "Buddy, we don't cut that shit off." It's a secular government, and they like want to kind of keep it that way. But all these, the influence of different Saudi fighters that came there. I wish I could remember these fools' names. ISIS there. And it's not like they came, excuse me, it's not like they came to make Syria better. They just came to take over. And I don't know, like, I guess we'll see like what happens with this current situation. I don't know if like the Syrian government fighters like retreated strategically, or they just like, we can't deal with them. A lot of people like to say in the media, oh, like Russia and Iran have Bashar's back and the government's back. I'm like, well, the Syrian, those rebel fighters do got Turkey right there. There was plenty of stuff going on with Turkey and all those rebel fighters, including ISIS. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, I just hate for people to have to want like to die, and for people to have to like leave their country. The war in Syria. Last thing, the war in Syria. Those refugees that fled to Turkey. A lot of, this stuff kind of happened a while ago, but like those refugees that went into Turkey and ultimately like went into Europe. You could argue like that's why Trump got elected. Like you could argue that. Like you could argue like all this like anti-immigrant sentiment really started from the Syrian civil war. Erdogan, the president of Turkey, really played hardball with those people. He was like basically holding the European Union hostage, saying like, give us such and such, or we'll just let all these refugees go into your countries.
And I've even, it's actually really interesting you mentioned that, because I've even heard kind of like a climate justice angle from that, of like, yo, the reason why you had the Syrian people up in an uproar where like, the regime at the time was able to weaponize that against the European Union, as you're describing, is because like Syria and a lot of the region at the time was in a drought. Like people were hungry, people were like struggling.
I don't believe that narrative, but I've heard it. I don't believe it, but I've heard it.
Okay, so yeah, it's totally fair. Like I've just heard it. I'm again, I don't know a lot here. I'm just like kind of throwing things out here. I would love for you to even take 5 more minutes to kind of explain why you don't even believe that narrative. But like,
Well, because to be honest with you, like it was. I think that narrative came from and like with love and light. I'm not like saying these people that were saying that are wrong or stupid or whatever.
Bam drives a Hummer.
But let's not forget that Syria and Iran are like the two countries left in that region. Let's forget about Libya. Let's forget about Libya. Syria and Iran were
let's not forget about some things. But let's forget about let's selectively forget so long as Bam gets to look smart. I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, we could include them too, but
let's not. This is not inclusive podcast.
What year did they kill Gaddafi? Was that? I feel like that was also like. I feel like that was in 2011. Yeah, so that situation ended kind of early, basically. But and the Syrian civil war went into like 2016, 17, whatever. But Syria and Iran are like the two countries in that region that oppose Israel / America. And for better or worse, like they are functioning countries. Before all this madness happened, I watched a documentary about like life in Syria done by the BBC, literally a year before the civil war started, and the shit is normal. Like, no, and I'll say as normal as like countries in the Middle East are. Obviously you see pictures of the president everywhere and shit like that. That's how they get down. It is what it is.
Again, in America, you see our like ghetto ass flag everywhere. So like,
yeah, exactly.
And you have our kids like blindly say a pledge of allegiance to which that like none of them understand until they get like 25 or 30. And when I say like until they get like 25 or 30, even then like only 15% of them kids actually figure out like, oh, that was weird. Oh, that was weird. But yeah. So again, like this is I only mentioned that not to belabor your point at 32 after, but just to say that like and by the way, I'm loving this, but like just to say that like this is high horse that Americans will get looking at photos or videos of like North Korea and like, oh, look at the train stations. I have Kim Il Sung and Kim Jong Un like all over there. I'm like, yeah, I ride MTA in New York City, and you got the American flag, and you got like Rudy Giuliani, and you got like Eric Adams, noted federal felon Eric Adams. It's like all over the advertisements in them subways. So like, let's just kindly, we don't have to be tankies, but let's just kindly get off our high horses about like, oh, we would never do that here.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that. I'm just saying the reality.
I know you're not. Yeah.
But yes, they do all that, and they got the fool's face, but and statues. But for all intents and purposes, it was like a normal functioning society. At one point, I was going to go study in Syria, actually, but this
likes white girls too much.
This situation, what the hell you think Syrians look like? This situation, like whatever started in Tunisia that spread to Libya and Yemen and different places. Like, I do think that American intelligence took advantage of the situation, because there's always, God, there's always some like jihadi losers ready to take American money. Like, that's just what I'm going to say. There's always some, we're fighting for Allah, aka jihadi losers ready to take American money and weapons and fight against whatever government's there. That's what happened in Afghanistan. That's what happened in not necessarily Iraq, but that's at least what happened in Syria, and that's what happened in Libya also. And Yeah, they did that. They took the bag from America or Saudi Arabia or Turkey, whoever, all the same shit, and they fought against the government. Bloody, terrible war, and there were a lot of people here at the very least that were ashamed to say that they did not support the quote unquote revolution. Like they were ashamed to say it. People would be like messaging me like, dang, Bam, like I feel what you're saying, but I can't say it because everybody will get mad at me. I'm like, I don't give a damn because this shit is wrong. I don't want another anti-Israel government to fall, an anti-America government to fall. You think that America's giving these fools money and weapons so they can still be against America and Israel? Like, absolutely not. So, I don't know. I just feel like with the situation right now, to speed it back up, I think the situation right now, I think that these people, Hayat, are preparing the region for a war with Iran. I think they're trying to help or at least help weaken / distract Syria. Will Syria get involved with the situation? I doubt it. What the hell are you gonna do? But obviously Syria is an ally of Iran. So I don't know. We'll see. It's unfortunate. I hate to see people dying there.
At the risk of belaboring this anymore, I mean, like, Russia has kind of been both siding the Israel-Palestine thing in the same way that China has been both siding the Russia-Ukraine thing. Like on the one hand, China says like, oh, we're severe. Like I always compare Mitt Romney calling himself a severe conservative. Like, like China's like, we're severely neutral when it comes to Russia, Ukraine. Meanwhile, they'd be sending Russia all their, extra munitions, extra weapons, all that stuff. China loves to say like, oh, we're severely neutral when it comes to the issue of North Korea. When it's like, to the extent that North Korea is still a functioning state, it's because of aid from China and no one else in the region. Now Russia has a deal, but not like Russia has much to give people. North Koreans are sending troops into Russia to help fight in the war in Ukraine. So just to tell you how bad the down bad brigade is. But like I say all of that to say, I say all that to say, take Russia's stances on anything at any given time with the grain of salt that what I just described is. I think Putin's playing all of his cards because fate can land you wherever, and he'd like to have at least one card in every single part of the world that isn't America. Not a bad place to be if you're against America, to be fair. But it feels like, again, my very mixed blended knowledge here, correct me when and if I'm wrong, but it feels like Russia has a little bit more of an interest in Syria through like as a proxy, or like as like a, even if not like a proxy, like, oh, we have some influence in this area of Central Asia that Russia, being a Eurasian country, the Eurasian country, would really like to have some of that influence like further south near that border. Ukraine is one thing, but Syria, to the extent that they can keep Turkey neutral, is another thing. Again, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Syria, all different conversations as far as their relationship with Russia, right? But do you think that, Syria getting closer to Iran in this case when it comes to Israel, the Israel question, as crudely as that sounds, right? How do you feel that could influence Syria's relationship with Russia, right? Because if Syria is starting to play more of a take in the, war on Gaza and Israel, there's a case I can see where Russia sides with, or Putin sides with Israel because he is going into Ukraine over this guise of, denazifying Ukraine. So, maybe he cares about that. But also, of course, he doesn't. And this is more of like a power game to him. And, he could just be doing some other stuff and could be seeing that Israel's a proxy of America, me no like America. And, this is a way for me to get in where I fit in here. Or at least, angle myself so that I have some cards in the basket no matter what else happens, considering Trump is very unpredictable? I know it's a very weird question, and we can definitely like kind of end with your last word, but yeah, I just think those are my thoughts. Just like, like Syria feels like an interesting chess piece, and Russia, who hasn't really been very involved in this, feels like, oh, they could use Syria any which way this goes. So I'm kind of curious what direction it could go.
I think like Syria is not like a powerful country military wise by any means. Like Syria is not
Could I have
like
nukes?
Syria is not like involved in what's going on between Hezbollah and Israel, or like with, you know, they're not involved much more. Like they support Hezbollah, so maybe there's like some arms that are going through or whatever. Like I don't know, but like they're not like putting their troops on the ground or anything like that. Israel is constantly attacking places in Syria. They killed that one Iranian general or whoever he was in Syria. Um, as far as like Russia's influence with Syria, like I think they're just allies. Like, you know, like we're the global South and we're like against American hegemony or whatever, allies in that sense. Russia hasn't been like, as of right now, they haven't been like too involved in helping the situation. They have done some airstrikes in Idlib, but I don't know if it's because like they don't have shit or because the Syrian government forces are like regrouping before they go back. Similar thing happened in Iraq when ISIS took over Mosul and I think another city, maybe Kirkuk, I can't remember, but they for sure took over Mosul. The government now, granted, those Iraqi forces fled because they got overran, but you know, they came back and took back the city eventually. I would imagine this is a similar situation. They may have gotten overrun, or they may just like we don't really have the means to fight this fight with all these fools coming, so let's just get out of here and we'll regroup and come back. And I can't imagine the civilians in Aleppo really want this, like, you know, these people running the show necessarily. When it comes to Iran, Syria, Russia, obviously they're all allies, but I think that like Putin's never going to be like vocally pro-Israel, but he's never going to do anything to like stop what Israel's doing, you know, like, but we'll see. And also when it comes to Iran too, like Iran and Russia are allies, but like they're like tacit allies. They're not like allies. Whenever, you know, if Trump was to declare war in Iran, like it's not like Russia's gonna put their neck out there to say like if you attack Iran, we're gonna do such and such. That's not gonna happen. Like they're gonna be like, hey, don't do that, and then like if and when it's over, like how do we get in on this kind of thing? Like what's up with a pipeline? You know what I mean? Like that's what's gonna happen.
What
Like
you gonna do with this diesel though?
when Russia backed Syria, it was easy for them to do that because America was not gonna be like sending troops and shit to Syria. Like they were never gonna like. Actually, I take that back. There were American troops in Syria. It wasn't like a battalion or something like that, though.
But
like
this was also the time where like America was also boondoggled still in Afghanistan and the remnants of Iraq, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like, much like you're looking right now, where Russia is boondoggled in Ukraine, and a couple other different situations too. So like, there's
right. Yeah, I'm sorry. There wasn't going to be like it wasn't like, oh, if you like help the Syrian government against these Syrian rebels, you know, we're like America's going to come back, you know, like they're just like, dude, whatever. Like Obama was basically like, we're going to give you guys the arms and shit that you need and a salary and y'all figure it out, dude. Like that's kind of how it was. Same thing in Ukraine. It's like, we're going to give you the shit you need to fight, but like, we're not going to go there and do it for you kind of thing. And eventually those Syrian rebels, like ultimately they probably feel like they won because they did get like a part of Syria kind of to themselves. But ultimately they lost because they wanted to take over the entire country and they were not able to do that.
Also,
Um,
you can't really call like either part of Syria. Like if you want to like, separate it in this context, like you can't really call it a functioning state, right? Like it's just like
no, I think it's a functioning state for sure. No, I think it's a functioning state. It just has some
I mean, the
regions that
people are miserable and fleeing. Like there's just like it's
no,
definitely not like wealthy, and you can have states like that. But like that,
no,
like are there is there like a sense? Is there like a sentiment of not that you need to be a functioning state and a democracy, right? But like the people ain't got any say there.
no, I mean, no, we're talking about the Middle East here. Nobody has a say in any of them damn countries. So, um, but I
Even
think
Israel.
right. I think that after the ceasefire and stuff, and even a bit before that, at least in like Damascus and like some of the surrounding areas, uh, some of those cities, there like the government still had control, and since then, uh, you know, 2011, Syria got kicked out of the Arab League, and now they do them Arab League meetings. Bashar is shaking MBS hand. Like they got let back into the Arab League. Like they're back. Like Bashar is back, like how he was before the Civil War. And during like the 2011 to like 2000, I guess 20 time, he was a pariah even within the Middle East, like even within like Arab countries. So no, I think Syria has gotten some of its like quote unquote status back, but at the same time, the Syrian government does not control the Idlib region. And I think they don't control like some of the Kurdish region for real, for real. But they don't really care about that for real. But yeah, I think it was a functioning state, like for sure. They still got they still got sports and shit, and they still got beach resorts and stuff. You can go look. They got beach resorts. You can go right now. Well, maybe not right now, but you can go.
Again, this is an exercise in me asking ignorant questions and me expressing that I have no like real good grounding in Syria, even less so than Georgia, the country and also the state. And so like thanks for informing me, and I'm gonna we'll continue to keep this as an ongoing conversation. Definitely over the next 4 years, I'll be looking for some news escapism by going towards what's going on in the world as opposed to the United States, because I think they'll be more productive and more like educational. And so through that, I think there'll be a lot more opportunities to learn a lot about what's going
But
on in Syria.
Bad Lefty asks a good question. Does China have any influence at all? And said, sorry if this is a wild tangent. I don't think it's a wild tangent, but does China have any influence at all in this situation? I'm gonna say no, and I don't think they want to. Like, I think China is staying out of like these messes. Like,
Yeah, like this is like the only reason, at least putting my political economist hat on, which I feel a little more comfortable with, is like the only reason China is getting involved in kind of like the messiness of politics and like Central and West Africa, for example, right, is because they see that as an economic play. And they
right?
want like they want infrastructure, they want freight rail, they want ways
They
to
want
extract.
minerals.
Yeah, they want minerals, and they want ways to extract those minerals. And if that means that you build the darkies a light rail train here and a subway there and a tram over here, then you know what, Yahtzee. As long as you can run those rails like with those minerals, wherever they need to go to get to the ports, to get to China, to where they can continue to bolster their economy, because
Right.
China is in like a 2000s America kind of sense, where it's like, okay, now China is looking to offshore their cheap plastic goods to like the Philippines,
Mhm.
to Taiwan, to Thailand, to India, to Sri Lanka. And so because turns out when you um cosplay a communist government, but in reality you're a capitalist government, eventually them people are gonna start wanting shit.
No, that's true.
And so, like, yeah, that's a little bit like unreal. Like, I say that to say, when it comes to Syria, this is nothing to say against Syria, right? But Syria's best resource when it comes to China and what they lack is location. And in the 1500s, when there are no airplanes and there
Right.
are no like advanced ships, and you need to get to the Mediterranean Sea, then you might have to make some deals with Syria.
Yeah.
in the 2020s and the 2030s, you got boats and ships and the Pacific coast of the United States,
Right.
or the Pacific coast of Canada or South America. If
Latin
you want to
America,
take
yeah.
it back funny, then you just got a lot more. Like China's got a lot more options, and Syria
Right.
just, unless there's like vibranium hidden underneath Syria that we haven't figured out, right? Like it's just
No,
not something that China's interested in.
exactly. Like I couldn't have put it better. Like they just don't have anything for China. China just built some like mega port in Peru. Like they're like, we're trying to get that shit down there cracking. And like, I just don't think China's interested in like the constant warfare that is in the Middle East. That is like literally, it's just like political. It's not for like any real gain. Whereas in Africa, like let's say the Congo, yeah, there's constant warfare for the past 30 years, but condescendingly, at least they're like fighting for like, we're trying to get that cobalt over there and those diamonds over there. And China's like, cool, we will help you get those, and we want our majority cut, and we want children digging in those mines like they always have. We're gonna keep the children digging in the mines with no shirts and shoes. We will keep those children doing that.
And yes, like where I get annoyed with tankies is that, like, yes, China's doing colonialism, but in defense of tankies, I will say China's colonialism is much more of a let them fight and then we will pick up the scraps later colonialism versus America's like slash. I mean, okay, I will be fair. In this particular case with Central Africa, they're not like deploying troops, and they're like, I'm sure there's some mercenary shit that's going on because like there's Russian mercenaries up in there, there's American mercenaries up in there, like there's that stuff, right? But we're not seeing a scramble for Africa. Like China's not like actively trying to pick up, okay, well, that's a topple government, or we can topple that government, and so let's make something happen. Like we're not seeing that. We're seeing a lot more of, okay, that faction's over here, that faction's over here. Can we like blow some wind in a certain direction so that we can get some like 3% more cobalt from those like young African slaves you were talking about? Like that's what China's talking about. And still colonialism. It may seem like less like chattel slavery or like less like smallpox blankets, but it's still colonialism.
Not even to be like, I'm not even like trying to be like anti-China, and I'm definitely not trying to be pro the West or America. I think that you're not seeing that because it's different times. Like, I feel like if it was like the time for that topple government stuff, I think you'd see it. And I think that it could happen. Like, if there ends up being some president that's elected in Zambia or something like that, who's like, you know what, like you guys own all these mines and like the conditions are still terrible. What's the difference? Like maybe India saying like, we're gonna let the children wear shirts without holes, like, or they're gonna give them shoes, like, or something. Because when we're talking about like the Congo and like this conflict that's going on there, I think China owns like 60% of the mines in the Congo now, or something like that, and it's still terrible conditions. So for me, I'm just like,
China doesn't care about workers' rights.
Yeah,
they don't care domestically. You think they care in Africa, dude?
Right. I'm just like, you ain't no better for real. Like, it's still a freaking mudslide with some kid with the rags on going in. Now he might end up in a French Montana video, but like, I'm just like, it's the same shit at the end of the day.